The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hi, my name is Leo Connors, and welcome to The Ring and All Other Sports. Tonight, I got a very special guest, someone that I wanted on here from the original list. Former professional wrestler, Jose Perez.
How we doing, man?
Good,
How you
man.
been?
Thank you.
How's things?
Good. Things are really well, and I just got to say thank you. That's all I got to say, man. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Hey, all the moon and stars all kind of got together to where we need to be today.
All right. So, where'd you grow up?
Where'd I grow up?
Yep.
I was born in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, and pretty much raised in Providence for the most part.
All right.
I lived in Central Falls for the beginning part of my childhood, but then I moved to Providence, and I pretty much stayed in Providence ever since.
Okay. When did you first see pro wrestling?
Whew. My first thing with pro wrestling had to be at, and I'm dating myself, Jack Witchy's.
Wow. A lot of guys that have been here have gone there.
I don't remember much of it.
Right.
I just remember being there.
Right.
As a kid, but then I didn't really get into the wrestling of it until probably the mid '80s.
Okay.
That area.
Yeah. So Hogan was already the champ, or right around when Hogan was the champ?
In the general area, I was in the age of like the Flairs and the Von Erichs
Yep.
and WCCW, that type of stuff, which is ironic because I was just watching that the other day and it made me think about it. But I was around those times when I really started kind of Saturday morning wrestling is when I started watching it.
Did you end up going to the world class shows in Lynn, Mass?
No, see,
I went there too. I went to one of them.
I wasn't like that.
Right.
I wasn't like, oh my God, let me go. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I was raised by a single mom, so I really had nobody to go with. My mom hated. My mom really didn't like wrestling. Even when I started wrestling,
right,
she just couldn't grasp why I would do it.
My mother hates wrestling. Hates it. All right. Who were some of your favorites when you first started watching? I know you just said like Flair and
it's guys like Flair, Steamboat. Yeah. Junkyard Dog was a real big fan of mine. Not fan of mine, fan of his.
He would have been though if he would have saw you wrestle. Trust
exactly.
me, he would have been.
But no, guys like Gentleman Chris Adams, the Von Erichs. I was big fans of the Von Erichs. Right. Those type of guys is that I used to gravitate, but probably my whole time had to be Flair and Steamboat. Okay. Those are the guys that really turned it all. Yeah. Turned that light bulb on.
Nice.
Just the way they moved and the way they interacted.
Okay. When did you go to your first show?
Hey, what kind of stuff is it, man?
That's water. No vodka or nothing. I wasn't sure who was driving. I wasn't sure if you were by yourself. I didn't want to get
you're lying to me. You're lying, bro. You're lying. See? Your cup says L on it. You're lying. No, this is just water.
This is that's Derek's old cup. You remember Derek? You know my old co-host Derek?
Oof.
Derek Dukes?
Yeah.
All right. You're one of the only ones that might say something nice about him.
He actually hits me up every once in a blue moon. When I post something, he'll hit me up. He's down in Florida or something like that, huh?
No, he says he's in Florida. I think he actually is in Florida, but a lot of times he says he's in Florida. I mean, he's in friggin' Pelham. Honestly, that's the truth. Derek, I still love you. You should unblock me. You're the one that caused all that stupid
Derek was a character.
stuff.
Having a cigar. Yeah. He was a character.
If he didn't do the show with me, and I'm not gonna lie, I wouldn't probably still be doing it because I couldn't get a guest at first.
Yeah, that's just how it is.
You know. All right. So, what about when did you go to your first show? Did I say that already? Yeah. How about indie show?
My first indie show, I think I'd already just started. I didn't even know that. When I started wrestling in '93. It was just literally a 4x4 cardboard type of ring. And I didn't know there was anything wrestling other than what I would see on TV. I had no idea. It wasn't until maybe probably 3-4 years that I was in that I found out there's like, wait a minute, there's more wrestling than what's in Rhode Island. Right. And that's what made me go, okay. So I didn't really start following wrestling until about maybe 96, 7 is when I started doing more about it. And that's when I started finding out there's more independent stuff than, again, what was on TV. Right. You know? And
who was running back? Like, was Killer still running then?
Oh, he must have been.
96, right? Because he was still running when ECW was pretty popular.
When I started in, I believe it was 97. '96 when I started with Yankee.
Right.
And they were around for a few years at that point.
Okay.
You know, and they're kicking 30 plus years now.
Yeah.
So
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Joe's in the name game, so I'm pretty psyched to talk about that. All right, now how old were you when you knew you wanted to be a pro wrestler?
Oh, I would probably say in my teens. I remember being in middle school, and at that point the bug had already got me. I was like, I can't wait to go to high school because they have wrestling in high school. And yeah, there wasn't wrestling in high school. It was collegiate wrestling in high school.
Yeah. Did you end up doing that?
Yeah, that's what I ended up doing because I kind of committed myself to it.
Right.
But I was for me, I thought I was going professional wrestling. That's what I thought, and I had nobody guide me that way. But it was a blessing in disguise because I was able to gain some good fundamentals of mat techniques and working out and things of that nature. My freshman year was god awful.
Yeah.
It was god awful. But I got out my freshman year. I did freestyle wrestling after that. I took a little jiu-jitsu and taekwondo after that, along with it, and then came back and placed third in states the following year.
Nice.
You know, and I stayed consecutive throughout high school. So, and then that's when I started really finding out more about but the wrestling aspect of it. And it wasn't until I was like 20-ish, going to 21, where I started professional wrestling.
Okay, so you're like 21 years old when you started training.
Yeah.
All right, perfect timing. Who trained you? Uh-oh.
Yeah. Formally, I wasn't never really formally trained when I started. I kind of just worked with whoever was around at the time. I worked with guys like Wolverine Wolverine at the NEWA.
Danger Boy Alfredo.
Yeah, those guys. Yeah, not Danger Boy, but Wolverine.
Okay.
Wolverine was like the mainstay guy there.
Yep.
So I worked with him, and then because I was at Power League first.
Okay.
And then I was like, oh, there's this on TV. I want to see this. I want to get there. And funny story is I couldn't get in there. It was one you had to know somebody to get in there.
Right.
And ironically enough, my wife was taking some classes and came across an individual that was part of that organization. Young guy named Tiny the Terrible.
Yes.
A little small person.
Yep.
She got in his ear one night, told him how he wrestled with Power League, and we got together, and then that's how I met him and Anthony Rufo, and started working with them, got into the NEWA through that aspect of it. And then once I got in there is when I started doing started getting a little more training per se out of it for what it was. Yep. I didn't started getting formally training until the late Savannah Souza. Okay. When I went up to Yankee. Right. Because he was running stuff up that way. And then but I mean, I trained with like the Eliminators up at Champs Arena up in Salisbury. Yep. When they were up there with Callahan. Yep. And those guys. So I try to take
Big City Mike.
Exactly. I try to get whatever I could. I was a sponge, so whatever information I can get and work out, and I didn't care. I slept on a chair and waited for my turn and whatnot. So
that's a lot of wrestlers like that, man. You guys will do anything to do it.
It was great. I mean, for me, I think it was a different time because I didn't know anything about schools. I didn't have somebody guiding me along. Right. It was a lot different now. Yes, exactly. For me, it wasn't nobody was guiding me along, and it was at the same token as like when I was there, it was like when you wrestle, you got to wrestle here. Right. You can't go anywhere. You got to wrestle here. Yep. And I didn't get that at first, and I was like, okay, I guess I got to wrestle here. And then it wasn't until later when I realized, like, wait a minute, that's a bunch of BS. I'm not playing that game. Right. So it was interesting. I try to pass that on now to the younger guys. Like you get the knowledge wherever you can find the knowledge. Get your home base, have your stability, have your school that you go to, and never disrespect that aspect of it. But you got to learn from as many people as you physically possibly can.
Perfect example of that right now is Channing Thomas.
Yes.
Seriously, I mean, the kid's learning from a lot of different people, and that's why he's growing as well as he's growing, definitely. Great answer.
Good water, bro.
Huh? I hear you.
Filtered.
Who else did you train with though? Like certain places, even if you were just like rolling around in the ring with somebody when you were first learning. Was there anybody that you worked with a lot?
Something that I picked up on when I started out going out to more shores was I was always told if you get there early, get changed up quick. You don't know who's around the ring. Get whatever ring time you can before show. Work, meet new people, network, and work out. But I was around those are the times when the guys were like Wagner was around, so like Brown was around, Bo Douglas. Right. Like I said, I was part of I wrestled for the late Tony Rumble back in those days. Yep. So I got to see guys like Knuckles Nelson, and Eric Sprazier, Rick Fuller. So I kind of jumped in whoever would get in there with me. I got Luis Ortiz.
Nice.
I got
You had some good matches with him too.
I love Luis. Luis is a great guy. But I would get in with whoever I had an opportunity to get in with. I mean, up to the point where it was like, all right, guys, doors are opening. And I'm like, two sec, hold on. You know, so I try to get as much possible. Right. You know.
I'm bad. I forgot to shut my phone off. I apologize for that. Sorry, Dick. He's going to kill me. All right. Tell us about your first match.
First match. So when I started wrestling for Power League, it was literally a Sunday afternoon.
Yep.
We wrestled it was probably smaller than this staging right here.
Right.
And it was a buddy of mine that got me in, my friend Carlos that got me in, and he just literally just threw me around. That was pretty much the logistics of my first match. And that's pretty much, it wasn't until I really started doing stuff with like TJ Richter, guys like that is when I really started getting more. So I couldn't really pinpoint who my first match was because I really never really followed. For me, every match was my first match. Yeah. Unless I had 3 or 4 matches with that person. But for the most part, all my first early matches are all my first matches.
So was that something that you worked with regularly though when you first started, TJ? I haven't seen him in a
TJ,
long
but again,
time.
TJ, Wolverine, Gino Giovanni. Those are the guys that I was with in and out of the ring. So those are the only guys I really structured with. But I think I had more time to learn. I had more fun when I started branching out. Okay. You know, that's when I really started getting my feet wet and had more opportunities to do more things and whatnot. You know, guys that stuck out for me wrestling wise were guys like Rick Fuller, Luis Ortiz, like Lionel Brown. Those are the guys that stuck out. Right. I mean, because those are the fundamental guys of this area. Okay.
There's a great question later on coming up about Gino Giovanni.
Oh, geez.
All right. We go to fan questions.
Okay.
Dave Fournier wants to know, what are your memories of Primal Conflict Wrestling?
Oh, Lord.
Going way back.
Lord. Primal Conflict Wrestling was the birth child of Studley Steve Stallion. Yep. And it's funny because me and Steve Stallion were not friends by any stretch of the imagination when I first started, because he was like the guy at NEWA. Right. And he made sure everybody knew that. Right. And I didn't play that game when I went in there, so he didn't like that. But ironically, later on in life, it just kind of fell in, and I would be booked for the show. When he first started, I would be booked for the shows, and then I ended up taking over reins of the booking aspect of it, which was great because it was like kind of my first feel of like the inner working of the show. Right. Like I had a fundamental idea of it, but we had a lot of fun because we were doing things that really nobody else was doing. Obviously, the CCW around the time, but indie stuff on here, nobody was doing it for sake of politically correct. You can't do this stuff in schools. You can't do this and this. So we were kind of like, well, screw it. We paid for the building. What are we gonna do? Throw us out? We already paid for it. So my memories of those were starting out in front of 10 people and blowing up to 500 or 600 at the Wakefield Auditorium. Nice. That's when we had like Tommy Dreamer and New Jack and Balls, all the top guys at ECW would go on. I had made friends with a lot of these guys, and they were more than happy to come up. Right. So it was a great time.
Live Wire was there.
Dave Padula.
Yes.
Dave effing Padula. Dave Padula is actually a long time friend of mine. Yep. Dave was there when I started out. That's how long I've known him. He was also one of the main guys at NEWA. And I've known him ever since. In fact, we just chit-chatted a couple of days ago.
Nice. Great guy.
He talks to my wife all the time and whatnot, but he's a great guy. I've said it a few times before, he's one of my best friends and one of my worst enemies. Because we've literally when and then at Yankee, when they decided they're gonna start doing a little more edgier stuff, I got a point in wrestling for me where everybody was doing headlocks and hammerlocks and drop kicks, and I was like, nobody was doing this other stuff. Yeah. Nobody really. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go this way for a little while and see where it goes. And Dave was all about trying to, hurt somebody. So I was like, screw it, Dave, you and me do this thing. And it was funny because at that time I was doing a mask gimmick, El Diablo. Right. And which was funny because I started off that gimmick just as something to start out with. Yep. just to get my feet wet, and it just stayed for 6 or 7 years.
Nice.
And I was able to actually gain a following with it. So me and him just started doing our stuff, and he was doing like some cheeky gimmick.
Yeah.
And we literally try to kill each other. It was, I mean, I've thrown kitchen sinks at him.
Yeah.
Like I hit him we did a show in New Bedford where I hit him in a kitchen sink and it left around the drain mark in his head for like 3 weeks, like really right there.
Nice.
We took it on the road. We went to North Adams, Mass, which is a hike.
Right.
And I remember going out there and it was a couple hundred people. I think King Kong Bundy and Sags or Knobs from the Nasty Boys was there. And we were first half main event, and it was me and Dave and some kind of gimmick match with barbed wire and all this other stuff. And the craziest spot was he took a halo, a barbed wire halo, and put it on my head. And then he came crashing on me, and I fell through and like almost crotched him. And then when he went to get up, his legs kind of crossed over my head and literally scissored head in my head. And the crowd went bananas.
Right.
And intermission, everybody just stayed for that. And it was funny because we go in the back and Knobs, it's definitely Sags. Sags is like this, just clapping. He's like, thanks a lot, guys. Got nothing else for us to do tonight. Thanks a lot. Blame the booker.
Right.
I didn't put that there.
Now, Dave is a great guy. He's been here a couple of times. He even got me Flip Gordon, because I had sent Flip a message. Flip now, didn't answer me.
Yeah.
I tell Dave, he goes, you want him on your show? The next day he hit me up. He goes, yep, you're good. Send me a date. Awesome. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Great guy.
That's Dave.
All right. Actually, I think Dave has a question about, will we ever see El Diablo ever again?
He's popped up in the last couple of years.
Okay.
Probably a year and a half ago, I think he just kind of. I'll sometimes, if the timing is correct. I mean, I retired a few years back, like from full-time wrestling, but I don't have a problem maybe getting in and working with a student or something like that that needs that extra little bit.
Right.
So every once in a while I'll do some stuff and I'll pull the mask out and have that little nostalgia moment. And it's funny to even this day that people actually still know who it is.
Right.
So it's kind of, and I'll take it off and they know it's made. So I'll kind of like double duty it, whatnot.
Right.
But it's interesting that I'll put it on and people know it's me. It's still weird sometimes.
Right. We got to admit, there's a lot of die-hard New England indie fans around here.
Yeah, yes, there are.
There's some great fans.
Yes, there
All
are.
right. Do you ever think hardcore wrestling will ever make its return? Dave Forney wants to know.
Will ever make its return?
Yeah, I think he means
Like
as a promotion, maybe. You know what I mean?
It's still there.
Yeah.
It's not, I don't know if it will be mainstream ECW-ish, but it's still there. I mean, you have things like CZW, I could be saying this wrong, but it's what's the one with Matt Tremont in Jersey?
Oh, H2O.
H2O.
Yes.
That's what
H2O.
You'll
Matt.
see stuff like that there.
Right.
There's still
Game
stuff.
Changer.
Yep, Game Changer is another one. Then you have Bloodsport.
Right.
So you'll still see that stuff, and God knows on anything Janela's in.
Right.
You'll still see it. Whether or not it will be full on mainstream like ECW was, it's hard to say. I mean, last night they did a no barbed wire last night.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into that one.
I was going to say it didn't go over too well, unfortunately.
But I'm interested to see where it goes, though.
Right.
I'm very interested to see where it goes because it's an interesting story they're going to do with that.
Right.
So do I think it's going to become a thing where you can say, no, probably not.
Right.
Is it something that it's still profitable and you could do? Yeah, I think
Right.
so. I think there is a niche if done correctly, timed correctly, and it means something. Yeah, most definitely.
Because I did ask Danny DeMonte, who's part of Game Changer Wrestling, why don't they come to New England? And he said, dude, the rules that they would have to go by and stuff, you can't really do hardcore wrestling, he said, in Massachusetts. I don't really know. I'm not a promoter.
So they may have changed some stuff because I know not that long ago they were talking about trying to do an part of an athletic commission type thing. And I think that got kiboshed again. It's like New Hampshire. You have to sign. You have to do the whole.
You got to see Steve. I think his name's
you got to
Steve.
do the whole show. Steve is still up there.
Steve Boucher.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, he was at the
been forever.
APW show that Michael and Joe Moakley ran in Derry a couple months ago. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was there.
You could do some stuff in Matt. You just have to, there's certain things you have to kind of come across, and you could do stuff in Rhode Island. But I think the main reason why you won't see stuff like them come up here is for the fact they would have to really advertise the hell out of it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's not like it's a gamble. I mean, House of Glory did it, and they took a gamble at it.
Right.
And it didn't work, but worked kind of. It's a few years ago.
Right.
So when you're a promotion that's solid in one area and you decide to try to really make it out, it's a tough one to try and pull off. You really have to have that niche.
Right. Because CZW did come to Tingsboro.
Yeah.
And I went to that show. Honestly, there was probably 18 of us, man. It was like really sad.
Yeah.
You
Because
know?
you don't have the time to sit there. You don't have the time to sit there and actually advertise it correctly and really publicize it the way it needs to get done.
Right.
You
And
know?
I just wish it would have done more so more wrestling will come. I love all the companies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think at the end of the day, it's about creativity also. I mean, you have to really want to be different than anybody else.
Right.
You know, there are a lot of feds here in New England. But of all these feds in New England, who are you going to see on more of a national area? There's really only one.
Yeah.
And that's Beyond.
Yeah.
It's the only ones that have that thought process of like, I'm not staying just here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They'll see them everywhere.
Right.
And a lot of people, one, don't have that capital to pull off, or the smarts to pull it off, or just don't want to take that leap.
Right. Take a chance. Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's the biggest part, is taking a chance. It's
Right.
it's too easy to be the big fish in your area.
Right. Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's a big gamble. So that's probably why a lot of places don't want to jump around.
Okay. Let's see. Of today's New England indie stars, who is the one that you'd like to have one match with? Is there anybody?
She giggles in the corner over there.
I think I might know of one, but we'll see if you say it.
Of today's indie, there's really only one person recently that I've befriended in a way that I was like, if I had an opportunity, I'd probably do it, and that'd be Sean Donovan.
Nice.
He's a Jersey guy, old school guy.
Yep, I know Sean.
I
know who he is.
I had a pleasure doing a little something with him not that long ago for What Wrestling. Smaller thing, but he's a nice guy. He's very old school. I'm super excited that he had an opportunity to work AEW a couple of weeks back.
Yeah.
It would probably be him because honestly, I don't have the stamina to really get in there with guys like the Casanovas and you know, and the Cashews and stuff like that. Could I go in and have a decent little thing? I probably still could.
Right.
But it wouldn't really benefit them at all per se. Not to shoot myself down, but.
Right. Sean Donovan came around with Danny Moffin, was wrestled a few times for Chaotic. Sent to Slaughter. Great tag team. I'm a big fan of Danny's and Sean's. You have wrestled in many New England promotions. Which one is your favorite and why? Dave with the loaded questions, trying to get people mad at you. Just kidding, Dave.
If I had to have if I had a favorite, it would have to be back during my Yankee days. Because for me, Yankee was where I really got my feet wet with wrestling.
Right.
And I got to do a lot of stuff there that a lot of people didn't get to do, and a lot of different opportunities a lot of guys didn't get a chance to do. And got to wrestle in probably one of the best venues in New England at the PAL. So if I had to put a place, it'd be Yankee. But I enjoyed everywhere I went. There was always some kind of fun somewhere. Like I had a blast when Tony Rumble was around. He used to wrestle up at Good Times. Right. That's when I first had my taste of getting out of my Diablo character, because I wrestled for him 2 times a night. Right. Once as my Diablo character, and then I would use a lot of people don't know. I used to do a character called Charlie Bruin. And I was told about that today. Was a spin, you must have been talking to Dave. Yep, I was. Charlie Bruin was a character that I wish I could do right now. Yeah. It was just that much fun. It was just a goof on Charlie Brown. Yeah. I called him Charlie Bruin. I had the whole yellow shirt, the zigzag, shorts, little more grungier style, but same aspect. And I had the bald head already. I wasn't comfortable yet being myself, so I wasn't sure. I mean, I went as far as putting a little squiggle on my head on yards and dedication. Well, me and Dave Padulas, Dave for a little while, me and him tagged together, and he was Minus. Yes. Instead of Linus. Yeah. And then we had Peppermint. What was Peppermint Sally? Peppermint Sally. And we did the whole thing where we did the kick, and he would lift the guy up, and I go flying. It was a blast. I wish we would do that more. But that's awesome. That's when when I went up to Tony's one night. Is when I finally kind of found myself per se. Right. Because he was like, I introduced with that gimmick, and he was like, I hate it. I'm like, huh? Because I hate it. He goes, tonight you're gonna be what was his referee they used to have there? Dickinson.
Oh, Scott Dickinson.
Yep. And he looks at Scott. He's like, what's your real name? He goes, Jose. He goes, what? You know what? From here, we're gonna call you Pedro Perez.
Oh man.
I'm dressed like Charlie Brown, bro.
Yeah.
He's like, tonight you're going out as Pedro Perez. I'm looking at myself like, sure. So you say, Tone. Whatever you want to do.
Was he ribbing you? Or did you go out as Pedro Perez that night?
Pedro Perez that night, dressed as Charlie Brown.
Right.
With the Charlie Brown music.
Yeah.
It was a complete thing. Never wrestled at that gimmick again. I think it was probably one of my last nights wrestling that. But it got me thinking because he threw that name at me.
Yeah.
The Pedro's part dropped, but the Perez kind of stuck because my mother's maiden name was Perez. And I never really thought about that. So he gave me the Perez part, and I was like, you know what? I just use my first name because my first name is really Jose.
Right.
And my mother's maiden name was Perez. And it just stuck.
Yeah.
And it was like literally like the next week, and I was like, I'm just gonna go out. Then it was just a matter of finding me after that point, finding who I actually was. But I mean, I went through an array of gimmicks. I mean, between that one, any mask gimmick, because I used to always try to get as much ring time as possible.
Right.
So if I had I do in my box, I would have 3-4 different masks in different suits and whatnot. I would go out there. Joe Eugenio at PAL one night, we did 32 matches for TV.
Wow.
In one night. There was like 600 guys in a room. It was crazy. And I think I wrestled 9 times that night.
No shit.
And I wrestled my character, and I wrestled different characters. And at one point I got into the generic, G.I. Joe type of guy with my face paint, and I wrestled entirely different. And it got to the point where I was like, yeah, I'm done with this. I need to find myself. And it took me a good 7 years.
You were doing different things. That definitely was something that you probably didn't even know how good it was for you at the time.
I try to tell guys now, it's like, listen, if you're not confident yet, put yourself in the mask.
Right.
Get your lumps and bumps. Just go out there, do your shtick that way, and gain the experience, because it's easier to look bad under a hood,
right?
And nobody's gonna care. You're not gonna care because you're gaining something.
Right.
You can't fail. Excuse me. You can't fail if you're already winning.
Right.
Regardless if you win or lose a match, you're not gonna fail, because even if you looked bad, you're still learning from that. You're not perfect. But I would rather go out and do that than go out, like some of these guys go out day one, this is me, and look god awful.
Right.
And then try to build on it, because people remember that perception the first time. You only have that one time to make a first impression.
Exactly.
So I try to tell them that falls on deaf ears, but that's a story for another day.
That's too bad, because, you know what I mean? All these kids, like you guys were taught too. When a veteran talks, like you're in a car with somebody,
so I'm going to stop you there.
Am I wrong?
I hate the term vet.
But isn't that what, like when you were, let's say when you were younger though, you would sit in the car and people would have already told you, hey, just be quiet. Keep your ears open and your mouth shut.
That's how I was told. I was always told, like when I did stuff like with Tony Atlas and these guys, I'd go, and this is even still after I was a few years in, and even he already knew me, I would still sit there like, Tony, what do you want to do?
Right.
And he would just yada yada yada.
Yep.
He would say his thing, or Tito. I was just like, mm-hmm. But even near the latter part, when guys would come in, it's like, oh, I was like, you're the vet. I'm like, no. I never made it anywhere outside of this circle. So please don't call me that. Just, I might have more matches than you, but I'm going to learn from you just as much as you're going to learn from me.
Right.
So let's just make this work correctly.
Because that's another thing people have said here, though. Guys that have been in the ring with, let's say, 10 years of experience, and they wrestle a guy with 2, but they can learn something from that kid with 2 years of experience.
Exactly, because you don't know where that kid with 2, where he learned from.
Right.
And that's the nice thing about what I have at XWA, where I'm able to work with a lot of newer talent that come in and kind of work with them and help in certain aspects of it, and kind of maybe help them in a certain direction where they may not know that they're not doing it. So that's a big plus for me. So I get to have that kind of fun and help out. And the acknowledgement back afterwards when I come back, I'll have guys come back like weeks later and it's like, Jose, a couple of weeks ago you showed me this one thing and you told me this thing, I tried it back and it instantly worked.
Nice.
And it's like, that's gratification for me.
Right, absolutely. All right, Jerry Lane says, hey, Jose, how did you like working with Sheldon Goldberg and NECW?
Sheldon Goldberg, I've known Sheldon for years.
Yep.
Always been professional for me. He's never, that I know of, never has harmed me in any kind of way of, business-wise or anything. Right. So I've never had a problem. And NECW was great. I was more there when it was the PWF and ECW merger. But I had went to his product numerous times and seen stuff. I seen probably one of my favorite matches I've ever seen was at one of his shows at Good Times with Maverick Wild and Doug Williams.
Oh, nice.
That match was, to this day, I still think about that match because it was just such a good match.
Yeah.
But he was the pinnacle of wrestling in the area because he had that niche. He had it booked a certain way. He had the right type of talent. He had the marketing done at that time. So at that time, he was probably the company to be at. Anybody wanted to try to be somewhere, it was NECW. So I have no ill things to say about Shelton.
You had some great matches with Don Vega as your partner against teams like the Crown Jewels. We were talking earlier, the Canadian Superstars, and I think you wrestled the Dogs of War quite a bit there too.
The handful, not crazy, but it was more with the Canadians. And we had a real big rivalry with the Crown Jewels. Crown Jewels
great
were great
matches.
Yeah, Crown Jewel with Rumble and and he was it was funny because
Don Damon.
Is this water filtered? This is really good water.
It's good stuff.
Don Damon was great. He's a talent that probably a lot of people don't realize that he is.
Right.
And I don't even think he knows that himself.
He is
and
good.
There's something about the way, and he had a real flamboyant gimmick, and it was an easy gimmick to go, I really just want to backslap you. But it was funny because I work tight. I've always worked tight. And Don Vega learned with me. He trained under me when he first started.
Right.
So we train tight and we work tight, but we don't work to kill nobody. I mean, I'd rather hit and be hit back, than not hit at all. We had a situation with me and Damon, kind of whenever we had our match, whatever, and afterwards just like, hey, listen, dude, what's going on? And I'm like, dude, if I had a problem with you, we would have had this before the match.
Right.
There's no problem. It's just worked. This is the first time we had worked.
Right.
And I don't think he up to that point, he never got into a situation where he had a person that would really work tight.
Right.
And after that match, we were like, what are we doing next week?
Nice.
So it was an instant.
Yep.
He understood it. He understood exactly where it was coming from. So he's literally a diamond in the rough. And Jay Rumble's always been great.
Right.
I've known Jay Rumble for years. He was always a character, and he's always knew what he wanted to do, and he was very upfront with it. But Damien was one of those true guys that when you see him in the locker room, it's like, I just want to talk to you.
Nice.
So he was
and they
that
were
guy.
a great tag team.
Oh yeah,
they
were
really
great.
were. Like you said, flamboyant, and it was just fantastic.
He played it, and then when they had I'm bad with names.
Told you Ulysses.
Whenever they had him out there, it was gold.
Yeah.
It was gold.
The Three Stooges, practically.
Kids would go nuts for them. It was fun to watch.
Yeah.
It was fun to watch. And those are the type of things that make me love wrestling.
Right.
Because I can sit back and just watch it and go, these guys just kill me. Just kill me.
All right, Jerry follows it up with the perfect question to ask right now. Did you enjoy teaming with Don Vega as Wreak and Havoc?
Oh yeah, that was one of my favorite times in wrestling.
Right.
Because I got an opportunity to tag with somebody that was my equal, where we had the same kind of thought process, where we almost to the point where we knew what we were doing next.
Right.
He was just as aggressive as I was. And at the other side was good because I'm Puerto Rican, he's Puerto Rican.
Yep.
But he's a lot more Puerto Rican than I am.
Okay.
I'm probably, my wife says it all the time, I'm the whitest Puerto Rican you'll ever meet. So it worked out great that way because we balanced off each other.
Right.
So I can cut a good heartfelt promo in English, and he would cut a good heartfelt promo in Spanish.
Right.
And I can understand him and play with it. And so it was a good dynamic. We had a lot of fun with that gimmick. It was a pleasure tagging with him.
Nice.
It was definitely fun.
All right, Mike Jazz. Who was your favorite opponent?
Mike Jazz, man, where's he been?
Tell me about it.
Wow,
I start going to shows again, and like some of the favorite people that I used to like to see, I don't see anymore.
Mike Jazz, wow. I haven't heard that name in. Whew. I'm sorry, what's the question?
Who is your favorite opponent?
Hey, my favorite opponent had to be this old bastard. I'm sorry, but Brickhouse Baker.
Yeah,
it has to be. Only probably second to Dave Padula, because just Dave would literally let me hit him with a car.
Yeah.
If I said, Dave, this would go over well, let me hit you with a car, he'd be like, okay, when?
Yeah.
You know? You giggle,
right,
but
Tom.
it's a
I
fact.
hear ya.
Anybody that knows Dave Padula would know, outside of his terror tantrums driving, because you can't drive with him in a car.
Right. Oh, really?
No. He
too fast?
he takes aggression to a whole new level. It's like trying to throw bowling balls out the windows and milkshakes. Oh yeah.
Oh, wow.
Off camera, I'll tell you a story.
Yeah.
But it has to be Brickhouse Baker. And ironically, I remember when I first met Brickhouse, I did not like him at all. Weird, because for anybody that knows Brickhouse, he's such a down-to-earth, easy, rugged, old school type of guy. I think when I first met him, he was in a position at Yankee where he was way up here.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people just in his ear. But I think that changed real quick when we had our first meeting. And I was still doing my Diablo gimmick. And Brickhouse was just his Brickhouse self, vest,
Right.
Sandy Star with him, and here comes this new guy, this new, luchador style guy and whatnot. And it was such a clash that you couldn't help but watch the clash happen. It was something weird and miraculous at the same time. It was great. It was like we just instantly clicked to the point where we would show up at shows and the promoter would be like, hey, listen, there's somebody to make it. And I'd be like 5 minutes in. And he's like, I need you and Brickhouse to wrestle tonight. And he would be like, when? He goes, we need you to go up 1. And I'm like, okay, I'll just see you out there.
Yeah.
And it was just like, we could run 20 minutes and blink of an eye, not even think of nothing of it. And we get in the back and guys be like, how? Like,
just that guy.
It's just
that
guy,
opponent.
that guy. And I'm the same way with Dave Padula. Dave Padula's the same way. I could work with him easily, but it's two entirely different people.
Right.
Size-wise. But Brickhouse is probably somebody that he's got a wealth of knowledge, and a guy that really never went anywhere else, was content being, the weekend guy here.
Yep.
And I think we probably went 15 years at it. Easy.
Right.
You
guys had a long feud.
We got to the point where we walked away, and then I had a falling out with Yankee, and then years later, he was still doing the stuff there, and there was a part where they were kind of, not that they were getting stale.
Yeah.
The business kind of changed a little bit.
Right.
And PAL wasn't drawing as much, and I'm not trying to brag, not saying that was going to help this, but it was presented to me as like, hey, would you be interested in coming up to do something?
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, if I'm doing it with Brickhouse, yeah, I would definitely consider doing some stuff. And we ended up doing a thing where I was going to wrestle Brickhouse in his first time ever no rope barbed wire match in New England, and that was like a 6 months build,
right,
to get to that point. And it was like, and I remember I had the night of the show, I had a double booking. I was up in Boston that same night, or it might have been New Hampshire, but I had a double booking that night, and I left that show because we were the main event.
Right.
Flew all the way to Fall River, and there was 450 people there, and they were there from start to finish.
Wow.
And
a lot of people.
it's not unusual for a crowd by the end of the night to be dwindled down.
Right, of course.
They get burnt up, whatever the case may be, whatever it stands. But they were there and they were hot, like it was like nonstop. But that was Brickhouse's first time. But again, we had done cages. First time me and Brickhouse ever really wrestled early on was one of them was in a cage match in North Attleboro.
Okay.
Where we got to the building and I had no idea. I walked in, it's like, the promoter's like, hey, Jose, June Brickhouse in the cage tonight. What? He goes, oh yeah, we got 2 cage matches. He goes, June Brickhouse, first cage match. I'm like, okay.
Right.
Sure you want to go with that? Let's go. And it was a blast. It was a blast. I can't speak enough of that old dirty.
How many matches do you think you guys had together?
Oh
Seriously.
my Lord. Whew. I would probably say a good 60 plus matches.
Nice.
Easily.
That's a long feud.
Easy 60 plus match. It had to be because we wrestled like constantly.
Right.
There was a good 2-3 year stretch where I thought I think I was sleeping with him more than my wife.
Right.
It was just like it was nonstop. It was nonstop.
Nice. Would you rather just wrestle, or do you enjoy booking? And then he said / ownership. Now, have you been an owner of a company at all? Okay,
no.
You've been a booker though, right? And also helping out talent at XWA.
Yeah, I have even when I wrestled, I've always liked the inner workings of the wrestling business. So it was not uncommon for me to get to a show and just see like a curtain out of place and me start fixing a curtain, or I was trying to set up lighting or something over the ring or something like that, because I wanted, if I was wrestling the show, I wanted to be, let me go back for a second. I never got to this point.
Okay.
I got to the point where I was content being this. I couldn't make that leap of faith.
Right.
So I was content being where I was. But being where I was still couldn't mean that I couldn't feel that I was here.
Okay.
So if I wanted to feel that I was here, I wanted to make sure everybody felt the same way.
Right.
So whether the lights had to be a certain way, or the curtains, or the entrance, or the ring, something, it was always something that needed to be done.
Right.
I had no problem doing it. Or if there was video stuff in the back that needed to be done, and there was nobody to do it, I would run some video stuff like that. Of the production, I was always doing something of some sort. Because I couldn't just sit in the corner and just sit on my hands. It would drive me nuts.
Right.
Like Lord knows I've been to many shows where you get there and it's just like a curtain stapled to a wall, and it's just like, oh.
It just looks horrible.
It just drives me insane.
Well, you are a New England Professional Wrestling Hall of Famer, so don't ever say yourself, I don't want to see, like you said, no vet, I don't want to see you go and you got right here, because you're a Hall of Famer, New England Independent Wrestling Hall of Famer. In my eyes and a lot of other fans, you're not here. You're a little higher up there. I just want to tell you that. Seriously.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, no, but it's just, you get to a point where, like I said, if I'm in a room with some young guys and talking to me, and there's somebody who's done considerably a lot more than I have, then I would normally just tell them, talk to that person, because that person's giving me information that I'm not gonna be able to give you. I look at wrestling in a slightly different light. Because I think wrestling is very it's a perception base, so what you may like, I may not like.
Exactly.
I'm not gonna sit there and critique you on how you should wrestle, but I have a vision of how I think guys should look coming out of the ring, because something that was taught me very young is like, if you don't get them the second you walk out that curtain, then you're working 50% harder.
Yep.
And if you ask some of these guys now, it's like, hey, you get in the back, it's like, man, you just went out there and wrestled 8, 10, 12 minutes, man. Why are you so blown up? It's like, oh, the other guy was this and this. I'm like, did you ever think that you're working harder than you need to work because you're not working with the guy you're working with? You're working against them?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? If that makes sense?
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying.
It's, and that's been my thing lately, is like, guys, if you're not getting them the second you walk out, or those few seconds going out to the ring, you have to work that much harder. Whether you're babyface or heel, you're gonna work that much harder. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that translates easily to how you feel when you leave your match.
Right.
If you can leave your match and feel like you just walked out there, you might have a little sweat, a little breath. Everybody will, but there's a big difference.
Yeah.
If you can come to the back and go, wow, that felt good. Yeah, because they invested in you and you invested in them.
Right.
If you're investing that, if everybody's on the same page that way, your work is so much easier and they're gonna be gratified by that.
Nice. Thank you for the answer. That was a great answer. Any regrets, Mike Jazz?
Any regrets?
Yeah.
Maybe not making the leap though, but not really a regret.
Right.
It's not really a regret. I mean, for me, like I said, I have a wife, I have kids and whatnot, and I clap to all those guys that make that jump and can do it and whatnot. But it's a big leap. You know what I'm saying? Drive, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12 hours or whatever the case may be. Make a $50 payday and then try to. And that's what the older guys used to do too. I get it, but I couldn't justify one for the other. It just wouldn't work for me.
Okay.
I would have loved to have done it more, but that would have been probably the only big thing maybe. But
so no,
not really.
All right, Dave Delafonte wants to know, what's one milestone in wrestling you have yet to accomplish? Is there anything
that I have yet to accomplish?
Yeah, but that you had a drive for. I don't know. That's a tough question.
It is.
It's the first time someone's asked this question. So thanks, Dave.
If you would asked me that a couple of years ago and had that same question, it would have been not getting here.
Okay.
If I have a goal or drive, it would probably be to physically run and own my own type of promotion where I have the say-so, I have the full control. And I've had the pleasure of booking shows where guys like, hey, You do you. I'm gonna promote the show. You handle booking the show because that's two entirely different things.
Absolutely, yeah.
A lot of people don't realize it's two entirely different things. Something that I can turn around and say whether it succeeded or failed was by my accord, not because I did it with this guy and it failed or this guy and it succeeded. It was all my doing.
Right.
So if I had a goal that I haven't achieved, it would probably be that.
Okay. David Delafontaine also wants to know, what's the most important piece of advice that has ever stuck with you and majorly impacted your career?
Less is more.
Nice.
It's the easiest thing. I say that to this day. Less is more.
Okay.
You could be as flashy as you want to be. You could do a lot, but you know what? You're doing all that stuff and people are still sitting on their phone while you're wrestling.
Why?
Then what did it do?
Yep.
What did it do? But if you could turn around and do something, they go, and they're watching, and you didn't have to do all that.
Right.
Less is more.
All right. And his last question, what's the biggest pet peeve when it comes to locker room etiquette?
Oh.
Dave, thanks for the great questions. Is that, it's a good one.
We got time. We got left. I could suck up this next hour with this one.
Really?
Woo! Where can we start? Guys, wash your ring gear. Wash your ring gear, you stinky people. Oh my God. Wash your ring gear.
Right. I can imagine.
It's horrible. Disrespectfulness is probably a huge pet peeve. I can't stand for that. Or when you think you're more than what you actually are.
Right.
Or when you probably one of the good ones for me is when you critique somebody and they kind of look at you like, all right, thanks.
Right, so they're not taking what you said.
Yeah, and that's not even coming from me.
Right.
I've witnessed this with guys that are on like TV.
Right.
Explain it to this person. Oh, you should do this. You might do this. And they go, all right, yeah. And then I'll watch them the following week do exactly the same thing. I'm like, you didn't learn nothing.
Right.
That's probably the biggest one where it's like, why would you not take advantage of being in the locker room and looking at all these guys in there and somebody's been doing it either more than you or on the same level as you and learning something. Right. Yeah, you want to be a complete, just that guy. Right. And not. So that'd probably be the biggest, the biggest pet peeve for me is the lack of some respect. And you find that a lot in some of these newer guys. Yeah. But I'm also happy to say that there's a new batch of guys that I'm working with now that are really great kids. Yep. Very humble, very respectful, willing to learn, willing to listen, willing to do whatever it takes to help them get to that next level for themselves. So the double edge, but that's probably the biggest one.
All right. This question is from Ryan Brown. You know Ryan?
Yes. Yes.
He wants to know what it was like the night that you stuck up for him from a drunk Gino Giovanni being a jerk to him, and you stood up for him and must have told him to leave him alone or something.
Was that in Fairhaven?
I don't know. He hit me up and just.
I'm going to ask him to hit me because I vaguely remember that. I want to say the only place I could think of him there would be in Fairhaven. Okay, maybe that's the only thing. The VF place up in Fairhaven. Okay, and Gino was probably being Gino because Gino was Gino always in another ring. Gino's a great guy. I've known Gino for years. Right. And sometimes he was never real riled in. So when he started getting the indies, he really had a hard time kind of justifying that. Yeah. So yeah, I'm pretty sure he probably got on him. And Ryan's is Ryan. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure he might have started getting on just for the sake of getting on him. And I don't think he was trying to do it maliciously, like to try to belittle. I think Gino just being Gino. Just playing. Yeah, and me being me, I'm like, yo, man, why don't you calm down, relax? I think you're taking it a little too far or whatnot. Yeah, so. Nice. Ryan asks good questions all the time. Thank you, Ryan. I haven't seen Ryan. Great kid. We actually never went to a show with him. So like when the shows open up, there's so many people that I've talked to now since I started doing the show that wants to meet up and go to shows. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty awesome. All right, ask him about his wife Claudia being a valet in your early years. This is something that I had no idea until Dave Padula told me this. Dave Padula told me this, and I had no idea. So there is an ongoing joke that my wife's name is never mentioned in wrestling. Never mentioned. It's that my wife wants personal life and wrestling to stay the opposite. But a lot of guys like the rib, and I like to play that game with her and whatnot. So, but yeah, there was one small instance where she was coerced in being a valet for the late Dave Jackson, which was Reverend Dave.
Yes.
She came out with him and whatnot. It was a sight to see. It was definitely a sight to see. Yeah, I'm gonna probably get the front end of this one.
Yeah, well, then you should definitely make sure that Claudia hammers Dave, because he's the one that asked it.
Now I'm glad I got this water.
All right, Dan Bolia with the last question says, what did you think
Dan Badani?
No, Dan Bolia, guy that's been on the show like 10 times. A great wrestling fan, has his own show called Let Freedom Ring up in Merrimack, public access.
Hi, Dan.
What did you think of the ring not exploding last night? He's a big AEW fan. I just think it stinks. I wish it would have did better.
I want to almost say like I wanted to expect it to be like that. I just don't think they could have did what everybody's expecting them to do in that building. If they were in a venue that was opened out, like, let's go back a year or so, and I think it might have been different.
Right.
So whether or not they downplayed it or not, I mean, we're never gonna know. It's interesting to see where they're gonna go with this, because storyline right now is, well, look at Omega made this whole thing a dud because he was the one putting this whole thing together.
Right.
So that's gonna be the ongoing savior. And do I think they're gonna get out of it like nothing? I think fans are gonna be upset about it for now.
Yeah.
And then they're gonna forget about it when they see how it translates out.
Right.
That's the one thing about AEW that's interesting to me right now, is how they're kind of just having fun with the good and the bad.
Yep.
So it's interesting to see where they're gonna play with that one up. But do I wish it would have exploded? Yeah, I think that I wish the thing would have went just, out just crazy.
Right.
It would have been great, but part of me kind of was like, especially watching Kingston on top of Moxley like that.
Yeah.
Kind of like, it was like,
and it's funny because all I watched was like the 2-minute highlights of that. I didn't watch the whole show.
I just stay up. Somebody wanted to buy the pay-per-view last night. I don't buy pay-per-views.
Right.
I don't buy pay-per-views, and I'm glad I didn't buy that pay-per-view. I thought it was bad because I watched a lot of the stuff.
Right. I heard it was a good show, almost 4 hours.
Yeah, I didn't think it was bad. For the stuff I seen, I didn't think it was bad.
Right.
I just won't pay for it because I had a feeling that I think what a lot of people are upset about the whole ring not working is also the fact that they hyped up Christian coming in.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was like, not that he's not a great acquisition, but
they expected bigger.
They expected bigger.
I thought
like the ongoing,
I thought it was going to be Angle because he was teasing something.
Yeah, but
too.
you got to remember the biggest clue is future Hall of Famer. Kurt Angle's already the Hall of Famer.
Okay, yeah.
That was the big thing. People were like Bubba Ray Dudley. Or
right.
Said, no, you have to look at guys that are not Hall of Famers. You're looking at The Rock. You're looking at John Cena. Those are the guys that are not Hall of Famers.
Right.
A good friend of mine put up in there. It was going around that it was interesting that people think it was John Cena because the people behind the scenes that own, Paramount, all those other things and whatnot, are all people that have Cena's rights. So they were like, well, he's part of Vince. Yeah, but if the corporate world is saying you're going to go do this, they're the ones paying him, not Tony.
Not Vince.
No, not Tony.
Oh, okay, yeah,
it's not Tony. That he would technically get John Cena for free because the company, not AEW, Paramount, all these other companies, like they're owning HBO Max, all this, they would be paying him.
Gotcha.
So that was the big thing about whether or not he was gonna be the big, because wouldn't be surprised, but he doesn't have that schedule.
Right.
He doesn't have a schedule.
I just don't see Cena doing that on Vince anyway. Just because he doesn't need the money, first of all.
No, he doesn't need the money. But then again, but Paul White said, but I always say these guys coming into me are always just like plants.
Yeah. That's true. A lot of people do think that. All right, we got a little over 4 minutes for the name game, and I have to get into a couple names. How did your tag team with Pat Masters come about to the Edge?
Pat Masters is great. So I'll make that one quick. So me and Pat Masters were in Framingham for NEW, PWF. And they were like, we're going to have you guys tag. First time we're doing it. We have you and Pat tag up because I'd already broken off with Vega. And it was, no, I didn't start with Vega. I'm sorry. I'm going to tag up with him because we need somebody to tag against the Canadian superstars.
Yeah, Buster and Cole.
So I was like, yeah, sure. So it was like me and Pat. And ironically enough, Pat's gear, which he never changed, he always had the same red, black, and red, gold with black, was the same gear that I had, only that he had tights. where I had a singlet. And it was funny because we were both in this big mirror and he was just getting ready and I was getting ready. And we both stood up. We was kind of just stretching out. We kind of just like,
wow.
we realized we both looked identical.
Right.
And then we went out that night and had the match and I applied some stuff and we were like, yo, this is easy.
Right.
This is great. And we had a lot of fun with them. And then it turned into, then we realized it's like, he's the lightweight guy and I'll be the muscle.
Right.
And I could talk and he wasn't really into the talking part. So I knew I could talk. So it was an easy fit.
Right.
So we were able to it was just so much fun. He just one day said, I quit.
Well, because he was very talented. You guys were a really good team.
Yeah, he got to the point where he was just like, he got tired of the business. He was just like, I'm done.
Right.
You know, it was a shame, but he was a great little talent. He was a lot. Probably one of the most time I had fun in the business was tagging with Pat because it was just so easy.
Right.
It was just so easy working with him.
Okay. Sheldon Goldberg.
Historian, good guy. Like I said, I have nothing really bad to say about him. You know, it's I talk to him every once in a blue moon. He's a good guy.
All right. Joe Junio.
Joe DiGenio is the guy that gave my break. I think if I had to say who's going to give my break, it would be Joe. I mean, like I said, I started NEWA, and they were the ones that kind of got me started. But when I made my break into wrestling,
right,
it was through Yankee and through Joe Eugenio, and Joe was the one that gave me the avenue of taking the book at one point and stuff like that, and helping promote his shows. He gave me that trust, so top-notch guy for me.
Nice. Nick Steele.
Nick Steele, a loss. Nick Steele was the guy that you would think he was just this, just mean, and he really wasn't, unless you didn't know him.
That's what everybody says.
Yeah, he was tight.
Yeah,
he was a tight guy to work with, but he took care of you. He knew exactly what, he wanted to make sure you were safe and you enjoyed yourself, and he was always willing to give you, information and help you out in any way, whether he was in the match or not. He was always there to talk. So he's a great loss. It's a big loss.
Jimmy Allen, James Allen, Trooper Gilmore.
Trooper's another one I've known for eons. Nothing bad, man. He's got his little thing going in WW, and I mean, wish him all the best. But I've known him for forever. He's been a good guy.
Got to come out sometime. I catered his last 3 shows. I'll let you know if
I was gonna go to the last one. I'll definitely be the one with Jack on the show.
Oh, with Jack. Yeah, that's gonna be awesome. Didn't you just do something with him?
I was just with him a couple months ago, a month or 2 ago.
Yeah, that's awesome. I can't wait. Jose, thanks for being here. I really appreciate it, man.
Thank you. We can go on with this hours and hours.
Well, before we sign off, I definitely want you and Brickhouse to be part of my long feud series.
Let's set up. You need more time.
Yeah, I do need. We'll definitely.
Maybe
we'll do 2 episodes.
Film it in 2 parts.
All right, great to see you, man.
Good water.
Peace.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.